The year is 2004, and a 16-year-old Hikaru Nakamura walks into the US Chess Championship. He doesn't yet know it, but this tournament will change his life. The lineup was absolutely stacked with some of the best players in America, but for Hikaru, this was the perfect opportunity to prove himself on the national level. He was a rising star and a genius, but no one knew his name. That was all about to change. Boom, boom, boom! He flies through his opponents, getting 6 points after 8 rounds, but this still wasn't enough to seal the deal, which meant that his next game was a must-win scenario. This is the moment when Hikaru proved that he was not only able to compete with the best players in the world, but also beat them. Just look at this game. Ildar's pawns are running down the board. He's just pushing his pawn, and suddenly it goes from slightly losing for Hikaru to completely losing for Hikaru. It is -7. What he had to do was find the disgusting move King G2. Like, how are you even supposed to play this? But this is actually holding for Hikaru, but instead he plays F4, which is super natural. I can't really blame him. And again, another mistake. King takes F4 is a mistake because he had to go King F3 and keep his king watching these pawns, but it's just so hard to play this because the rook can get back actually. So the rook is forced to stop this, and after rook e5, Ildar had an opportunity to completely demolish Hikaru with bishop to b5. This is completely winning. You can't take here because Ildar makes a queen. And how do you stop these pawns? This pawn is protected, and this pawn is going to run down the board. The engine continuation is that Ildar gives up one of the pawns to play d2, and this bishop is covering the promotion square, and the rook just can't do anything here, and this is just completely lost for Hikaru. But somehow in complete time trouble and in crazy time scrabble, Ildar misses this and starts pushing his queenside pawns, but this gives Hikaru's king just enough time to stop this pawn, and now Ildar has nothing. Hikaru sacrifices his pawn to give some checks and swing his rook around. Now Ildar's pawns are still coming down the board, but it's not enough, and Hikaru is gobbling up all these pawns and winning a not clean game. This win meant he tied with Alexander Strapunski, which gave him a chance to fight for the title in the playoffs. And I'm just gonna cut to the chase. Hikaru absolutely obliterated Strapunski, winning every game of the tiebreakers and solidifying himself as the best player in America. But little did he know that this was just the beginning. Cinematic blackout. Wait, I wasn't supposed to say that. Born in Osaka, Japan, Hikaru moved to New York at 2 years old and started playing chess at the ripe age of 7, which is actually considered pretty late when nowadays there's some Indian kid that becomes a grandmaster 1 nanosecond after coming out of his mom's womb. Anyways, Hikaru's chess talent was extraordinary, and by the time he was in elementary school, he was already competing in and winning adult tournaments. Hikaru was consistently being coached by his stepdad, Sunil Veeramantri, who's a FIDE master, and after only 3 years of serious playing, Hikaru achieved his first of many milestones as he crossed the 2200 threshold and became a national master. Alright, so it's pretty clear that Hikaru had a knack for the game, and just to put it into perspective, I have been working towards National Master also for around like 3 years now, and my rating has gone up like maybe 300-400 points, but in the same 3 years, Hikaru went from literally 0 elo all the way to 2200. Like, come on bro, are you serious? But even this is the least impressive part of Hikaru's career, as once he hit NM, he didn't take his foot off the gas. Literally 2 weeks later, he became the youngest person in USCF history to be an international master. At age 12, he tied for first at the National Blitz Championship, demonstrating his natural talent for speed chess, and when he was 15, he became the youngest ever American Grandmaster, surpassing the record of Bobby Fischer himself. Just for reference, Gotham Chess has been trying to become a Grandmaster for 8 years, and Hikaru did it in 2.
Seems unnecessarily harsh when almost everyone is rooting for Levy. There's something called reality, you guys.
Let's fast forward. The year is now 2010, and a 23-year-old Hikaru sits at a ranking of number 10 in the world. Impressive, right? No, that is nothing. If Hikaru's full potential was like a fully grown butterfly or something, then he wouldn't even be a caterpillar yet. He'd be like the egg or something. Anyways, Hikaru is playing in the 2010 World Team Championship, and Team USA is in a critical moment against the national Israeli team. Hikaru doesn't know this at the time, but the other 3 boards will result in a drawn score, which means that Hikaru's game is decisive, and he has to win in order for USA to beat Israel. Well, when the stakes are the highest, Hikaru always delivers. I think the chess speaks for itself. Knight takes g2. He's like, oh well, I can take here, and look, I'm threatening to take the queen, so that's a good move. It's it's danger levels. It's Gotham Chess's danger levels. I'm threatening to take the queen, so he can't do anything here. But what he missed was that Hikaru can actually sacrifice not one, but 2 queens with knight takes e1, because he's allowing Gelfand to take his queen and make a new queen. Gelfand has 2 queens on the board, but it doesn't matter because the king is the most important piece, and g2 is a fully boxed mate on the king with this knight on e1. That's such a weird mate. So Gelfand obviously cannot accept this queen here after knight takes e1, so he just simply recaptures the queen. And then here Hikaru sacrifices the queen again, though, with bishop to h3. He still can take the queen and make a new queen, but it doesn't matter because if he does this, then it's the same mate. This diagonal is checkmating the king on h1. So Gelfand cannot do this, so he's forced to cover up the light squares around his king with bishop to f1. And in this position, Hikaru Nakamura drops an absolute bombshell. Boom! Queen to d3, fully sacrificing the queen, and he's literally putting 2 pieces in the scope of this bishop. This bishop can take literally everything, but if you take the queen, then bishop g2, bishop g2 is mate again, so you can't do that. And if you take the bishop, then queen f3 is forced mate, and this is just absolute brilliant sequence here. So queen d3 is just stunning move here. Knight takes e5, very it's pretty much the only resource you can try to do here. But once again, Hikaru sacrifices his queen, another move in a row. With bishop to f1, you can just fully take this queen again, but bishop g2 is still checkmate, so you can't do this. He takes here, and now finally Hikaru cashes in his 6 queen sacks in a row and takes this knight, and it's just totally winning now. He is attacking this pawn and also attacking this knight. I think this knight is actually like almost trapped here, but yeah, rook c1, because this allows Gelfand to promote this queen finally. But after just taking queen e6, Gelfand actually resigned in this position because Hikaru is extremely cleanly up a knight. Now, the absolute prime of Hikaru Nakamura's chess career is widely debated. Some people consider it to be between 2014 and 2016, which is a completely valid take. This was when he achieved his peak classical rating of 28-16, was the reigning US champion, and it's when he came the closest he's ever been to becoming the world champion, tying for 2nd in the candidates tournament. I think in terms of classical series chess, this was the best he's ever played. However, when you think of speed chess and the World Blitz Championship and disgustingly long win streaks, then the name that first comes to mind is Hikaru Nakamura, which is why I think that his prime started in 2020 and is ongoing. First of all, even though his classical performance has slightly declined, Hikaru himself said that his mental health is better than ever from being able to take chess less seriously and having so much support from his stream. Secondly, Hikaru is the most dominant player in the Speed Chess Championship history. Ahead of Magnus Carlsen's 4 titles, Hikaru has 5. You can make the argument that Hikaru's prime ended when his classical chess started declining, but in terms of intuition and ruthlessness and pure speed, I think that the current Hikaru is unmatched. Thank you for watching all the way to the end, and if you've enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. It only takes a second and it'll get YouTube to stop making fun of me for having literally 97% of my audience not being subscribed. Like, I didn't even know that it was possible for it to get that low.